Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC here on ESPN Plus. I reckon I'm going to go for Thursday today. Lots to get through on today's show. Later on, DeMarcus Beasley will be joining me to talk us through some of his career. Meanwhile, great interview from Herculez Gomez with the now Leganés coach Javier Aguirre. Aguirre talking about the first time he ever saw Lionel Messi play, and that leads us to the debate with Ali as to who was better, Maradona or Messi. Stevie Nicol with us as well to take us through his thoughts on those 5 players inducted into the ESPN FC Hall of Fame, plus Mark Ogden with us in a moment. We start, though, as we always do, by taking you through how the coronavirus is affecting football around the world. And Sid Lowe will be with us as well a little later on to discuss the Spanish FA plans toward the Champions League and Europa League qualification. Now, that is based on current standings if La Liga cannot be completed. Meanwhile, the Premier League are to meet on Friday to discuss resuming the season and possibly starting next season in mid-September. Also, those clubs seeking clarity over contracts ending on June 30th. Let's start, shall we, in the Premier League with Mark Ogden. Mark, what can we expect to be concluded in this meeting tomorrow?
Well, the meeting on Friday is another video conference, and what they'll discuss is a structure maybe to get back playing again and kind of an outline of potential dates. Now, the EFL have already gone ahead and told their clubs to return to training on the 16th of May with the hope of football again behind closed doors on the 6th of June, and I expect the Premier League to mirror the EFL plan. But beyond that, there's a real sense or fear that they won't be able to get next season started until mid-September at the earliest, which means that even if they start playing again in June, that's 3 months away. So they've got to get the Premier League done, they've got to get the FA Cup done, they've also got to find a way to get the Champions League done as well, and the Europa League, which is going to be probably the last thing they get sorted in maybe the end of August. So it's a long road back.
But starting the next season in September or mid-September doesn't seem like the end of the world.
No, I mean, I suppose some people would see that as a good outcome considering the football that we've lost. I think if they do return on the 6th of June, it'll be 12 weeks since they last played in the middle of March. So, we're getting used to things being delayed and put back. But the problem with a mid-September return is that it means that there's going to be a lot of games having to be crammed in before the end of the season, which runs straight into the Euros in 2021 because that's been put back. So do they then delay the Euros for another month? There's going to be a domino effect of big decisions of fixture congestion probably right until after Qatar 2022 now, because wherever you look, there's an issue. Can we get the games started? Can we get the games played? If you start in mid-September, do you play the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup? Can you fit them all in? There's a lot of questions to be answered, and right now, I think the first question is when we're going to play again.
Well, hopefully after tomorrow's meeting we'll have a better idea of that. For now, Mark Ogden, thank you very much. Meanwhile, in Spain, this is how things looked before play was suspended, which has relevance regarding the Champions League and Europa League spots. According to reports today, Sid Lowe is with us from Madrid to discuss this. Sid, just explain what these reports are.
It's very simple, really. What's happened is that the Spanish Football Federation has said that if they reach the point at which the season cannot be continued, and that they have to apply to UEFA and say to them, right, these are the teams going into European competition, that what they will do is they will apply the current league table. In other words, as you've just pointed out, Atletico Madrid wouldn't be in the Champions League, Barcelona would be in there with Real Sociedad, Sevilla, and of course Real Madrid. But that the problem with this is that this is the Federation saying so. Now, in theory, the Federation has jurisdiction to do this, and not only that, but of course is the direct communicator, if you like, to UEFA. But La Liga, which is a separate body, and as most people now know, La Liga and the Federation love to fight with each other. La Liga is saying, this is nothing to do with you, this is our decision to be made, and in any case, the season will get done.
In other words, it's a complete mess.
Well, it is a complete mess, and we're in a very, very difficult situation in Spain now in terms of what happens with football, because you've got La Liga and the Federation who really dislike each other. But not only that, but the league said, I think it's 3 days ago now, that they were no longer going to get involved in conversations with the Federation. They were just not going to talk to them. So there's a problem between the league, the Federation, the Players' Union, and it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, now to see solutions, genuine solutions, be put forward. And in particular, I think it's going to be very difficult to see genuine solutions get agreed by everybody.
That relationship seems to be replicating relationships around the world, to be fair, at the moment. Sid Lowe, thank you very much. ESPN FC back on your screens tomorrow. Be sure to join us. As always, if you miss a show, you can download our daily podcast over on the website. And by the way, lots of other content there as well. Hercules Gomez chatting to Leganes' Javier Aguirre. It's a brilliant interview. So good, in fact, we put it together all as a podcast. You can download and listen to that. Here's just a little taste. Aguirre talking about the first time he saw Messi play.
You've had a privileged opportunity being in La Liga for so long. You've gotten to see some very good players. Do you remember the first time you heard the name Lionel Messi and the first time you got to see him play?
Oh, yeah, sure. Good, very good question. 12 seasons. Now is my 12th season here. I arrived here in 2002 after the World Cup of Japan. And in 2002, same year, I think, we played at Sevilla. So I was training the day of the game in Europe. You have to train in the morning. You play at 8 at the night. You train in the morning. Very, very good, by the way. Very, very good situation. So we were, you asked for the pitch for the host team. I mean, Sevilla give us a nice pitch to train in the morning. Just kind of rondos or 1-2, it's very easy, but you have to move yourself. And then my manager told me, Javier, come here. In the next pitch, there was a youth game, Sevilla, Barcelona. And the guy told me, look, that the small guy, the one of Barcelona, long hair, like a rat. Trust me, 150 something. The guy scored in 10 minutes, 3 goals. Nobody can stop him. No chance, no way. In 2002, with, 16, 17. Next year, I play against him with Osasuna, Barcelona. Amazing. So imagine, it was 19 years ago.
Did you think back then that he would become something special?
Heck, no doubt about it. Nobody can say this guy, there's no way that the guy cannot be Leo Messi and top of the world.
So now you coach against him. I imagine trying to have a strategic game plan, something tactically to defend against a player like Messi must be complicated. How do you go about that?
Very complicated. I tried everything against him. One-on-one, man on all the game, on all the pitch. 2 against 1. Kick him also. But the guy is unstoppable. I mean, it's different, like Cristiano, very different, but both of them difficult. You have to understand the only way that you can stop him is that he don't receive the ball. It's the only way that you have to cut that circuit. I mean, the receiver is okay. You have to go for the beginning of the attack.
Yeah. It's funny because you've seen Diego Maradona and the way he's come up and how he's played. You've been on the field against him, and now you see Lionel Messi and you coach against him. In your opinion, who's the best player amongst those two?
I used to play against Maradona 4 times, by the way. Extraordinary player. There's a big difference, in my opinion, because Maradona was a guy that used to talk a lot in the pitch, a lot. To the referee, to the opponent, to his playmate. And Messi, no. Leo is a very, very quiet guy, normal guy. You have to give him the ball, and that's it. I'm finished. Maradona is like a parrot, always involved in making some mistakes. Also, you never saw Messi, never ever shouting to the coach, to the referee, to the other players. Never ever. Even if you kick the guy very strong, the guy, and Maradona was different character. Yes. In my opinion, both of them are extraordinary players. I used to play against Maradona. I used to play now against Messi as a coach. You love the guys. You love to watch these guys in the pitch, even if they're your rivals.
Brilliant stuff there from Aguirre as we welcome Ali Moreno, who joins Sid Lowe with us. Sid, Aguirre just seems to be a manager you could listen to all day. That Messi story in particular, fascinating.
Yeah, I went to see him about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just before this lockdown started, and he is great company. He's fascinating to talk to, and he has very much, I think, a very kind of human view of players. And I think we heard that there in the way that he discussed Messi, in the way that he discusses the difference between him and Maradona in terms of personality as well as just quality, in terms of the different ways that he tried to stop Messi, and in the end you kind of throw up your hands and say, well, there's not very much you can do. And he is, I think he's a fascinating man, Aguirre, because he's a survivor of 3 or 4 different generations in football, I think, both as a player and a manager, and he's very much someone that I hope can have success in keeping Leganés and up, and perhaps go somewhere else as well.
Ali, what I liked about the story about Messi, that you could see the twinkle in his eye, kind of taking you back immediately to the first time that he saw him. He wasn't making up this story. You feel it was completely genuine.
Yes, it was, and clearly an unforgettable moment for him. Because when you see a generational talent for the first time, that sticks with you. And so that's what happened to Javier Aguirre, is that he was asked to go see this kid. And how many times over the course of his coaching career must he have been asked to go and watch a player? Because everybody thinks that they have the next big thing playing in their team. And so you maybe go and watch him and you say, all right, okay, fine, I'll go and watch it, sure, no problem. But then you see Lionel Messi and what he was as a youth player and then what he became. And I'm sure at that very moment, Javier Aguirre must have thought, oh boy, we're looking at something else entirely here. And when you have that as a manager, there's a part of you that is hoping, could this guy please play for me at some point in his career? Clearly that hasn't been the case. And as Sid just alluded to, Javier Aguirre has had a difficult time stopping Lionel Messi in every which way that he has tried.
As most managers have. We'll talk about more about Messi in a minute. I'm just intrigued, Ali, to play for someone like Aguirre must be really good because he's clearly got that man management skill down to a T.
Yes, and I think what we saw in the interview from him was transparency and a guy who was willing to admit some of the mistakes that he made as a manager. And when you have that in terms of a player-manager relationship in which you see a manager that says, you know what, I can put my hand up and I can say, you know, my bad. All right, I got it wrong. It's not gonna happen again, and it's gonna be my responsibility to put you, the players, in a position where you can be most successful. And I think as players, that's what you want. You want honesty, you want transparency, and you also want a manager who understands where you have been, how you got to this point, and how you can get to the next evolution of your career. As long as you have that, then as a player, you want to do the very best for your manager. And I think Javier Aguirre, over the course of his career, has been able to navigate that, to navigate the relationship with his players and how that translates into results out on the field.
Right then, gentlemen, you know where this is leading. Messi or Maradona? Sid Lowe.
How long's this show? Have we really got time for this? We could be here all night. I think it is the impossible question.
We've got literally weeks.
we really have. Right, let's go for it then, shall we? I mean, you're taking players from very different contexts. It's inevitable, the comparison. I quite liked the way that Jorge Valdano put this once when he said, the thing about Messi is that Messi is Maradona every week, and even Maradona wasn't Maradona every week. The consistency, the repetition of brilliance from Messi means that I think when you look at it kind of in objective terms, it's quite difficult not to side with Messi. But I think if you look at the emotional peaks, I think if you look at the personality, which is one of the things that Aguirre was very keen to point out, that this goes beyond purely talent. I think when you look at the significance of Maradona, it's so hard to ever say anyone is bigger than Maradona, particularly when you think back to 1986. Now look, all of us have our biases, and because 1986 for me is very much my kind of first World Cup of discovery, the first sense of seeing something new, and genuinely didn't know much about Maradona until then. I don't think anyone can ever match up to that. And in fact, quite recently I watched the Maradona documentary, and the footage in that is just stunning. And however brilliant Messi is, and without doubt he is in terms of technical quality, in terms of objective measurements, he is the best player I've seen, and I think the best player I ever will see. I just feel like the emotional peaks of Maradona can't be matched.
So you're going Maradona, Sid?
On an emotional level, I'm going Maradona. On an objective level, I think I'm saying Messi.
What?
Emotion.
That is a brilliant bit of copping out.
Ali? Emotion, objective, where are you going with this?
Well, couple of weeks ago, we asked a very impossible question similar to this to Frank Leboeuf in regards to Zidane or Platini. And I'm much like him in saying that the fact that you've played with somebody as he did with Zidane, that humanizes that player. And so in my case, I played against Lionel Messi, and I've covered Lionel Messi since I retired, seemingly on a weekly basis. So to no fault of his own, it's almost as if you take Lionel Messi for granted, and the human element of the fact that you've played with a guy, it sort of takes the mystic and the aura and the magic away from the player, because he was a competitor on the field against you. When you talk about Diego Maradona, for me anyways, there is an emotional component and there's a subjective component in that it takes me back to my childhood and to everything that I wanted to be as a player. And you as a kid, everything is magnified. So however great Maradona was, as a kid, for me, he was even greater. And to surpass that, it becomes nearly impossible. Now, in terms of what a month can do for a player's career, the 1986 World Cup put Maradona in a whole entirely different conversation. And so forever and ever, we're going to have, whenever is it that this comes up, Messi against Maradona, the one thing that Messi has come up short on is delivering a World Cup. Now, it may be that Higuaín didn't put away the chance, and that could make the story different. However, Maradona, in the moment, when it counted, he put that team on his shoulders and carried that group to a World Cup. And so it is impossible to ignore that when evaluating both players. I love me some Lionel Messi. I really, really do, and appreciate the things that he has done over the course of his career. But this is an emotional decision for me, and the fact that Diego Maradona takes me back to my childhood, to where I most enjoy the game, I think I'm going to go with Maradona.
Meanwhile, Lionel Messi's future at Barcelona has been questioned of late, hasn't it, considering some of his outspoken posts on social media. And let's not forget, he can leave at the end of the season on a free. This is what Quique Setien had to say, though, about his star man and whether or not he'll stay at the club. I don't think what has happened has made a player like Messi rethink whether or not to stay at the club. I'm sure he will finish his career at the Camp Nou. Sidlow, is exactly what you would expect his coach to say, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. And actually, in fairness, it's what Messi keeps saying as well, because however much we become aware of this clause that means he can walk away for free, however much the idea never gets completely taken out of our heads, Messi himself repeatedly says, look, I want to continue. The threat is there, and it's helpful for the threat to be there because it puts pressure on the Barcelona board, it puts pressure on the club to build a significantly good team around him, and one good enough that he can win the European Cup again, which he's absolutely desperate to do before he retires. But I think Messi is well aware now that his legacy will be partly built on being a one-club man, partly built on seeing out his entire career at Barcelona, and with the possible exception of Newell's Old Boys, which I actually don't think is anything more than a kind of a romantic ideal in the back of the mind, which won't happen. I just don't think I don't think it does anything for him now to walk away, however bad things get at Barcelona. That said, they are getting pretty bad.
Sid, thank you very much. For a lot more from Sid, by the way, go over to the website. He writes about some of the possible transfers who could be heading to the Camp Nou and could be leaving as well. We've already seen a clip of Herc chatting to Javi Aguirre, a number of interviews he's done over on YouTube. Be sure to check them out, including with my next guest. DeMarcus Beasley joins us. DeMarcus, thank you very much for your time. Of course, kind of recently retired. Do you feel good about that now, considering what it must be like being a player, trying to keep yourself motivated, keep fit, without really a deadline as to when soccer is going to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about coming out of retirement now. No, but that part is you know, it's okay. You know, retirement is not all that it's cracked up to be, but I'm enjoying it so far.
In what way? What do you miss?
Everyone can tell you the same kind of answers. You miss the camaraderie with the boys, the locker room. Obviously, the most important, the games. You know, the games under the lights at night. You know, the games that really mean something. You know, playing for championships. Those kind of games. You know, you miss. Obviously, some of the friendlies. I don't really miss those, but definitely don't miss preseason. Don't miss that. I don't miss running around the field for no reason, just trying to get trying to get fit, especially in my old age. But yeah, definitely my teammates, the jokes, the road trips, those are fun.
Now, of course, when soccer comes back, it will be different. Almost inevitably, it's going to be behind closed doors to start with. Have you ever played in a game like that? I imagine it's a strange atmosphere for a player.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I don't think I ever have played behind closed doors in a big stadium. Obviously, when you're in the youth, you don't play in front of many people. But in a whole stadium where there's no one, no sound, no crowd noise, no singing. All you hear is the coaches and basically the players on the field. So that'll be definitely interesting. I'm sure. Well, speaking from an ex-player, I don't think too many players will enjoy playing in front of no fans, because that's a lot of reason why we play. So yeah, it'll be different. It'll be interesting, for the players, and but at the same time, you got to put that aside. And when they do come back to playing football, soccer, then they got to do what they can to win the game.
I wanted to go down memory lane with you, not quite as intense as Herc was, I promise. Starting with your move
cool.
To PSV. Obviously, you kind of come into this situation, you're brought in to replace Iron Robin, of all people. You're then part of a title-winning side. You get to the semi-finals of the Champions League. That experience, the whole thing must have just been amazing.
Yeah, it really was. And to be honest, I didn't actually know I was replacing Robin until I got to Holland. Obviously, there might have been things written on the internet or in the paper, but I didn't read that, so I didn't know until I got to Holland, and they were telling me. So yeah, how does it feel to be taking Robin's number, his place, and I'm like, excuse me. So those are the shoes that I have to fill now. That's what people are expecting me to do. So, but no, I mean, obviously he was a great player, but yeah, I just tried to play my game and obviously do the things that Gus Hiddink saw in me and try to help the team win. The first and foremost thing when you go to Europe is you got to earn respect, and not just from your fans. I mean, from your teammates, from the coaches. You got to earn respect of a reason why they bought a foreign player, to your country. So you got to earn that respect every day through training, how you conduct yourself. And, I felt I did that.
Meanwhile, looking at Manchester City, if I would have told you when you were there that in 10 years' time they would be the powerhouse in soccer that they are, what would you have said to me?
I would have said, hell no. No, definitely not. And the funny thing is, I think it was the year after I left, that's when the new ownership came in, and they basically bought Man City, and that's when everything changed. So if I would have stayed, one more season, I'm not sure. I'm sure I probably would have been sold after that. But yeah, it was a year after I left, and that's when the new ownership came in, and that's when they poured all that money into City. But no, I definitely couldn't fathom Man City being this big of a powerhouse in my playing days with City. But I still followed him through and through. I still have a couple of contacts there that I speak to. So yeah, I'm hoping to get there one day in the near future to see the new facility and go to a game and this and that. So but I am looking forward to going to Man City again, visiting.
Now, of course, when the Champions League comes back, they're sitting in a nice position, of course, for the lead over Real Madrid going into the second leg, which is in Manchester. Do you think they can do it this time? Do you think they can win the whole tournament?
I think so. I really do. And I obviously they've had different injury problems, especially with the back line. There's a lot of defensive midfielders having to step in and play at the center back position. But no, I think they have enough weapons. If they can get past Real Madrid, I think they have a good shot of going all the way and winning it all. Obviously, a little bit of luck is always needed in those type of tournaments. But I think their quality that they have from each player and the players that come in, off the bench, to help give everyone a push. I think they have enough in their locker room, in their dressing room to win the Champions League this year, if it comes back, obviously.
Also challenge them inevitably. Well, yeah, won't it? In the Champions League is Bayern Munich. We had Alphonso Davies with us last week, and it's incredible the impact that he's made in Germany in such a short space of time. And what I wanted to talk to you about as a player, how difficult is it to do what he has done, basically from an attacking midfielder now to a fullback?
Yeah, you know what I think about that, and the reason why I think he's obviously miles ahead of me because of we kind of had the same situation. I was an attacker and then moved back to left back, but I did it towards the end of my career. He's doing it when I think he's 19 years old, and obviously for Bayern Munich. For me, I think the biggest part is mentality, because you go from, creating goals, trying to, win games, trying to, sometimes even, put the team on your back to make something happen. That's your job, is to score goals and to be creative and make assists. And now it's about, not so much going forward and being defensive. That's your first priority is basically getting a 0 and getting a clean sheet. That's your reward as a defender, So him being able to change that mentality at such a young age is it just goes to show how mentally strong he is, at this age. And obviously, playing in Germany in the Bundesliga, playing for the powerhouse, which is Bayern Munich. That shouldn't go underappreciated. Yes, he's a very good player. He has all the the attributes to be a top player in the whole world, not just in our region. But for him to be able to change that chip in his head at such a young age at a big club is pretty impressive.
Final question for you, DeMarcus. Oh, it's real tough journalistic stuff. I had to dig deep to find this within all my years of working here on TV. Who is the hardest opponent that you've ever come up against? Which player?
Ooh, the hardest player I've ever had to go up against. I would say, I'll give you two answers. The hardest player I think I've ever had to go up against would be Ashley Cole. I think he was. This is back when I was obviously playing, not in the Houston Dynamo days against the LA Galaxy days, not those days, but when I was in Europe in the Champions League playing against him. I think he was probably the hardest guy to get around in my days. And the smartest player I would say, hands down, is Maldini, Pablo Maldini. I played against him a couple of times, obviously with PSV against AC Milan. And as far as a defender, he was towards the end of his career when I was playing against him, and by far, miles ahead of me as far as understanding the game and just being smarter and more intelligent than I was at such a young age. So yeah, those two would be my answers. Ashley Cole would be the hardest, and smartest was Maldini.
DeMarcus Beasley, and thank you very much for your time. DeMarcus, by the way, will be joining us on Extra Time today, answering some of your tweets. Be sure to check that out over on our YouTube channel.
Thanks for having me.
Bored of waiting for the Premier League Hall of Fame, ESPN FC thought, you know what, we'll just do our own. The first 5 inductees were announced yesterday: Thierry Henry, Alan Shearer, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes and Steven Gerrard. That, of course, has caused a lot of debate. Here to throw in their 2 pennies, Stephen Nicol is with us. Stevie, let's start with that 5. Are you happy with it? Would you like to see someone else in it? What's your thoughts?
I would actually change 2 of the 5. As fantastic as Thierry Henry was, as fantastic as Scholes was, I would have Cantona and I would have Roy Keane in the top 5. Listen, when you talk about a Premier League Hall of Fame, there really are at least a dozen names that could actually make their way into the top 5. But as I said, my personal opinion, and at the end of the day, that's what it is. when you look at a player, some people look for other things than somebody else. My personal opinion is the most glaring one out of the 5 would be Cantona. I mean, you can't think of the Premier League without Eric Cantona. You know, the start of anything is always huge. You know, the base of anything is always important. And the Premier League started, and that's when Eric Cantona came into the scene, and boy, did he make an impression.
But was his impression as big as Thierry Henry, Stevie?
What, 4 championships in 5 seasons? I mean, you talk about bringing a flair and a completely different personality and a real personality. You kind of, the argument is very difficult because you look at what Henry did, and yes, he was an absolute superstar, but we have to separate these guys, and I'm separating Eric Cantona from Thierry Henry.
And yet you would still have Giggs in your top 5 still. You'd have Gerrard over Thierry Henry, despite the fact he never won the league.
Well, you can't argue that Gerrard never won the league, but what you can't argue is that one player carried one of the biggest clubs in the world on his back for a decade. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Thierry Henry had an incredible supporting cast. Again, I'll say it, as incredible Thierry Henry was. Gerrard didn't have that supporting cast. Anything Liverpool won silverware, you're talking FA Cups, you're talking Champions League, that was Steven Gerrard. He carried that team. He carried, as I said, arguably right now one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the world, and he carried it on his shoulders. That surely has to be enough to get this guy in the top 5.
Finally, Stevie, for those maybe the younger viewers who didn't see Alan Shearer play that much, how good was he? How difficult was he to defend against?
You know what? Everybody looks at Alan Shearer, and certainly when you look at his appearances, his goals, you know, top scorer of all time in the Premier League, that's what you think about. But this guy just wasn't a goal scorer. This guy was an absolute world-class centre forward at holding the ball up. He had an incredible touch, and I'll tell you what, you talk about smart, you know, positional. You know, when at times you need to try and help your team to get them out of a defensive position, and you've got a guy like Shearer standing on the halfway line, holding off 2 or 3 defenders to give his teammates time to get up and then join in. I mean, that is, some would say that's a bonus, but Shearer was a complete player. Shearer did not have a weakness. He actually scored a goal against me at Anfield. It was in the penalty box. He had his back to goal. I thought I had him in the perfect position, and the ball just bounced up in front of him, and he swiveled and hit it first time into the top corner. And there are some times as a defender, you just have to say, you know what, I don't think I could have done anything to stop that. That's how good this guy was. I think I was a pretty good defender, Dan, but I'll tell you what, I couldn't do anything that day.
Oh, Stevie, in your humble brag way. Stevie Nicol, thank you very much. Nick Miller's been writing over on the website about who the next 5 players should be inducted into our Hall of Fame. Be sure to check it out. News breaking over the last 48 hours that US Soccer looking to close the DA programme. Ali Moreno back with us. Ali, for someone who hasn't grown up here and maybe isn't aware of this, what's this all about and what significance does it have?
Well, what's it all about is that starting in 2007, U.S. Soccer had created the DA program, and that was supposed to attract the top clubs, youth clubs in the country together so that they could play at the same level and play against each other in regional competitions and then in national showcase competitions. And so that was sort of the plan, and it was intended to have the best players from each area, from each region, from each club to play together so that the development of the player would be enhanced. Now, somewhere along the way, the players kind of became secondary to other interests and other people that have a lot of hands in the pie and pulling in all sorts of different directions. And so now what we have is a decision in which U.S. Soccer says, you know what? We're not moving forward with this because we have some issues going on. pending, of course, the lawsuit with the U.S. women's national team, the coronavirus, and a few other things that are going on. And so then U.S. Soccer has decided to say, you know what, the DA program is something that we are going to put aside. Now, on the same day that they announced that, MLS clubs come out and say, well, we're going to have our own sort of academy league going on. And the situation that is created now is that the elite, in this case, MLS clubs, become even further elite. Now, those clubs that are non-MLS clubs, then they're sort of left in the middle of nowhere trying to figure out where their place is and where they fit in the picture of youth soccer. What I think is going to happen and could potentially happen is that if you do the math, MLS clubs, there are only 26 of them right now, potentially or eventually is going to become 30. So there are 30 academy teams for MLS teams out there in the country. Financially, it doesn't make sense for teams from across the country to be playing against each other on a weekly basis. You simply cannot have that sort of investment just yet in youth soccer at the academy level for MLS teams, because MLS teams will have their own financial issues after this coronavirus and after all sorts of different things that they have to deal with on a daily basis. So what does that mean? It means that regionally, MLS club teams are going to look for partners, for teams, for non-MLS teams to be part of their own now sort of league that they want to create. Okay, so this kind of reminds me of kind of like The Bachelor. MLS clubs being The Bachelor, and then everybody else waiting for a rose. So if you're in a non-MLS club, you're waiting for a rose, a handout from MLS and say, come and be part of our program. But if you do not get a rose, now you're really left in no man's land. You really don't know where is it that you fit in. Do you join a league? Do you create a league of your own? In the end, and I think this is the best way I can put it, is that that group of players that was supposed to be top-tier group of players, top-tier talent, that do not quite make it to the MLS club academies or do not live in regions in which they can attend an MLS academy realistically 4 times a week for training and also in the weekends for games, then you are kind of left in limbo. You're kind of figuring out where is it that you fit in and don't quite know exactly what the development, which it was supposed to be the goal of the DA program, what your development individually is going to look like in the near future.
Ali, as a parent, you've got a horse in this race, obviously. Alejandro, aspiring soccer player, much better than his dad ever was. As a parent, how do you feel about all of this?
Well, it's difficult because I have this platform and I can voice my concerns. But in the end, I'm just a parent like everybody else, and I'm troubled by the idea that there is a lot of uncertainty coming up, and you're hoping, as any parent would do or would hope to do, is to provide your kid with the best opportunities available. In the case of my son, that's all I want to do, is provide him with the best opportunities available. Whatever he does with those opportunities, it is up to him. It has nothing to do with me and my career. Whatever he accomplishes in this game, it is up to him. But I want to give him the best opportunity. I want to give him the best chance. I want to at least show him the door and have him walk through that door if he is good enough to do that. Well, but here's the thing. Now there's multiple doors. I don't even know where the door is. I don't even know what the options are. And that's the part that is tricky and troubling and frustrating, is that you can't say to your son and say directly to him, you know what, if this is what you want to achieve in the game, this is the way you do it in this country. Because, again, there are many cases in which you have a kid that may not be anywhere near a training facility or an academy system for an MLS team. And so how does that kid then become part of the program? How does that kid have a direct path to Major League Soccer? How does that kid then really showcase his talent to whoever is available out there watching him? To me, as a parent, again, the frustrating part is you want to provide your kid with the best opportunity available. The DA program was supposed to be that. Now that structure is no longer available. It's no longer a possibility. And so now you're left in between. And that feeling of not belonging to here, there, or anywhere can be a very powerful and empty feeling for any parent. And certainly for me, who, by the way, I've been involved with this game in this country for nearly 30 years, and I don't have a clear picture as to what's happened next. Imagine what's going on with parents that are new to this game and they're trying to figure it out for their kids as well. I feel for them, but I can also tell you this. I myself have questions, and I don't know that I have all the answers available.
Ali Moreno, thank you very much for breaking that down for us. Jeff Carlisle, by the way, has written about the situation over on the website. Be sure to check out his article as well. We'll end the show with this. Have you seen it yet? Wait for it. Wait for it. Here it comes. Yes! Pepe Reina, I love you. I've seen that so many times and it still makes me smile. You know what we're going to be doing on the show over the next few days. Frank Leboeuf, and we've got to get Stuart Robson as well to recreate that. That is brilliant. Thank you very much to everyone who's been on today's show. More from us tomorrow. Until then, goodbye. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you as always for your tweets. It's an intimate edition today. It's just myself and former US international DeMarcus Beasley. DeMarcus, of course, was on the show earlier today very kindly, has agreed to stay and answer some of your nonsense tweets. We'll start with the one, who is the best player that you've played against? Well, we've already talked about Cole and Maldini in the show, but who was the best player that you played with, DeMarcus?
The best player I've played with? I would have to say it would probably, charity games don't count, so I won't add that. But so I would probably say Risto Stoichkov or Philip Koku.
Yep.
Those two will be my top two best players I've ever played with.
Not Hercules Gomez?
Nah, Herc's my boy, but nah, he's probably like. I'll say best 100. He can be on my list.
Oh, mate.
Herc, I love you, man.
Surely with Herc, man. You're old. You've played with a lot of people. Herc is way down there.
Yeah. He'll definitely
next tweet coming in. Old Firm memories, mate. What was that like?
Oh, man. The Old Firm, that's great memories. During my time in Scotland, we won most of those games, and the first one that I got to play in was at home, and we ended up winning. I think it was 1-0. I came in at in the second half, so that's my real first taste, of the Old Firm Derby. But man, it's electric. It's something that you have great stadiums, great atmospheres you play in, whether it's in Europe or international matches, but nothing compares to the Old Firm Derby, especially at Ibrox. The place is special, so much history. It's something that it should be on the bucket list of any footballer, because being a part of one of those games, and then obviously myself got a chance to be a player in that game is special, and it's the whole week leading up to the game is the whole 2 weeks leading up to the game is something. It's different, and I love my time when I was with Rangers, but yeah, the Old Firm Derby is those games are something different.
How did you get on with the Scottish accent? Because we've obviously got Craig and Stevie on, and when they get really riled up, really excited, they go extra Scottish. Were you surprised how almost a different language it was at times?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was a different language. The funny thing was, when I first came to my first interview when I got to Glasgow, they gave me a dictionary. It had not one English word in it. It was all Scottish. Words and things I needed to learn, and when they say this, it means that, so I still have it, actually. It was pretty cool. It was pretty funny. So they gave me the dictionary to try to learn some words, some Scottish words, the Scottish lingo. But yeah, when they get going and you got two Scottish people, talking at the same time, yeah, it's hard to understand. Very hard.
Yep. Okay, sticking with Scotland, next tweet. Tougher league, Scotland or Holland, in your opinion?
Tougher, I would say tougher as far as, obviously just being tough, I would say Scotland. I thought, Holland, obviously, I think is a step above because of the level of the players. Not, no disrespect to Scottish football, but I think the Dutch league is just a little bit more technical in that aspect. But as far as like just toughness, raw toughness, I definitely have to say Scotland. It's not even a question. Some games, the midfield doesn't even touch the ball. It just goes from back to front, back to front. It's playing in those games. For example, playing against Hamilton and at 7:30 at night in the freezing cold. That's about grit and just who wants it more. The fight. Not a lot of soccer tackles. Just rolling up your sleeves and getting dirty. That's how it was, back then. So for the word tough, I would say Scotland.
Meanwhile, we're talking about the winners of Euro 2021 in England. Do you think Gareth Southgate should play Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield and then Wan-Bissaka or Kyle Walker at right back? How would you handle it?
Ooh, for me, I think you got to pick one as your right back. That's my opinion. If I was a coach, and no, I do not ever want to be a coach. I think you got to pick. England has so many talented players in the midfield positions. They're so strong, and you can put anyone there, depending on how Southgate wants to play. But I think you need to pick one right back. And one is going to be, he's going to be disappointed. He's not going to be happy that he's not playing. But if I was a coach, I would have my right back, for the tournament. And obviously I'm a City fan, so I got to put Walker there. I know people are not going to agree with me just because I'm biased, but but at the same time, yeah, that's my opinion. I would have to pick one right back, and put a attacking threat at the midfield position for sure.
Who would you support in the Euros, by the way?
I wouldn't support.
Would you
anyone,
care?
Really? I like watching good football. The teams that are obviously in Euros are they're most of them are favorites to win the World Cup every year. They have great young players coming in a lot of different countries. I know, by name, obviously, most every player in those Euros. So, I wouldn't per se I'm rooting for someone, but, I just like to see, good games. So for me, any of the games that, come about, I'll watch. So, but I don't have one team or one country that I'm actually rooting for, no.
Right then, let's talk a bit about your career. How would you compare the USA 2002 squad to USA 2014? Different era, different teams, different players. I think both teams had their success in their own right. But if we're just talking about obviously from World Cup emphasis. Obviously the 2002 we went further than we did in 2014, but I think as far as man for man, I think 2014 was just as talented, if not more, than 2002. Both teams, I think, had that American spirit is what you need, But I think the 2002 group was a little bit more together and a little bit more, it felt a little bit more like a family. Not saying that 2014 wasn't like that, because we were all brothers and we all were together. But I think 2002 was a special squad. To be a part of that, for me at a young age, and obviously be with my homie Landon was very, very cool, exciting, and all that. So that's the only difference, I would make between the two teams. You just preferred the people in 2002, 2014. That's fine. That's all right.
Basically that's what it is. Right. I didn't want to
Final point.
Have people will give me hate emails and hate texts. So, basically I like more people in 2002 than I did in 2014. Yeah. Okay, you said it, Dan. So hey, y'all can have problems with Dan, not me.
That's all right, man. Add it to the list. Right.
There
Final
you go.
question. What's your honest opinion on the Chicago Fire logo, the new logo? Have you seen it?
Do I really have to answer that? I think my face says it all.
Of course you have to answer it.
Yeah, I'm old school. You know, I think, you know, they could have done a little bit better job with the logo. You know, from what I hear,
don't dance around it. It's terrible in your opinion. That's fine. That's not a problem. What are they going to do?
Yeah, for me, it's not for me. It's not for me. And like I say, for me, all I can do is read from what people say, and from what I hear, they didn't listen to the fans. You know, no one wanted that logo. I don't like it personally. You know, it's not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. I think they got one wrong on that one. I think they got one right going back to Soldier Field, but the logo is not. I'm not having that. I'm not having that one.
DeMarcus Beasley, brilliant stuff. Thank you.